Suit the word to the action, and the action to the word. These are the words of William Shakespeare, the famous English playwright. He wrote some 37 plays and lived between the years of 1564 and 1616. He was so impactful that many phrases that he utilized are still used today as common colloquialisms. Phrases such as a wild goose chase, break the ice, in a pickle, all's well that ends well, and foul play are all phrases that we got from this man. And this very learned playwright, who did know a lot about communication, concluded one of his major beliefs and thesis as a playwright was that you must suit the word to the action and the action to the word. Welcome to Lecture 7. Today, we will begin discussing proper body actions, proper bodily actions. Now to start with, letter A, bodily action is a necessity for effectiveness in speaking. It is a necessity. It's not an optional thing. You're in freshman speech. As you're giving a presentation, you can be like, well, do I want to have some actions with this speech or just give the words? No. Bodily action is a necessity if you want to be effective in communication, if you want to be effective in public speaking. Ralph Waldo Emerson, an American lecturer and philosopher from the 1800s, stated that your actions are so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. This was a mentality that he wanted to remind people of, that, hey, often people in influence or people who are talking can confuse their audience because their actions are not aligning with their words. And actions speak louder than words. We've all heard that phrase before, but this is really where that comes from, for the most part, is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Your actions are so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. Now, as a communicator of God's sacred message, we need to make sure that our actions are in alignment with the message, with that desired response, with that objective that we have in every presentation. Number 2, actions help to capture and hold the attention of the audience. They help to capture and hold the attention of your audience. Now, audience attention is like gold to a public speaker, to a communicator. If you don't have the audience's attention, you're really going to lack in your ability to communicate with them because they're not listening. So what's one way to attain and then hold that attention? To have proper bodily actions. Our brains are wired to look at and then track movement. And so if, as a speaker, you have bodily actions, gestures, and movements that are in alignment with your message, your audience will be interested to the action, and since they're watching the action, they'll better understand the message you're trying to convey to them. Now, number 3, actions give more meaning to your words. They give more meaning to your words. And in fact, sometimes actions give more meaning than words. Now, how it's written here in the notes is that they add meaning to your words. And that's certainly true. And in most cases, that's what you'll have with actions. But there are instances where actions themselves will communicate more than words could. For example, if you were to read Luke chapter 22, verses 55 through 62, we would read this if you were in class in person. We would go through this together and have the class read this out loud. And in this passage, it's talking about Jesus going to trial and about Peter being there at the campfire. Now, earlier in the day, Jesus had talked to Peter and said, hey, you guys are going to deny me to the disciples. Peter said, Lord, I would never deny you. And Jesus says, Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times before the morning comes, before the cock crows. Peter says, Lord, I would die before denying you. Well, Then you go through the Last Supper and you finish that up. You go into the prayer in the garden. Jesus gets arrested, and Peter follows the group that took Jesus to the temple. And once they get to the temple, the place where the Jews are passing judgment upon Jesus, Peter sits outside in an area where apparently he could look in and see what was going on inside. He sits down at really what would be a servant's campfire, and he keeps an eye on what's happening inside of the area, inside of the court area. And as he's watching, a lady comes out and says, "Hey, you're with him, aren't you?" He says, "I'm not with that man. I know I'm not." Second person comes out. Says, "Hey, I'm pretty sure you're with that guy. I've seen you together. You're with that Jesus who we're putting on trial right now." And Peter says, "No, I don't know him. I'm not a part of his group." And then a third time, one of the servants comes out and says, "I know you're with that man. You're a Galilean. Your speech betrays you. You're not from around here. And the only foreigners we know are the ones who travel with that Jesus. You have to be a part of his group." And Peter curses and swears and says, "I know not the man." When those words left his lips, he looked up into the courtroom, and through an opening into the courtroom, you could see the back of Jesus. And the scriptures say, there in the book of Luke, that Jesus turned and looked upon Peter. What's the response? The scriptures then convey that Peter went out and wept bitterly. Earlier that day, Jesus had told Peter that Peter would deny him. And what was Peter's response? "I won't. I would never." And yet, once that had happened, Jesus didn't need to say anything to Peter. But what conveyed the most meaning was Jesus looking behind through an opening and locking eyes with Peter. And when he looked upon Peter, what was that look? What did it communicate? What sorrow or disappointment? That look that Jesus gave Peter was powerful. It caused Peter to go out and weep bitterly, and I'm sure throughout the rest of Peter's ministry, the look that Jesus gave him stayed in his mind as a motivator to work diligently for the cause of Christ. Actions can add meaning to your words and can sometimes add more meaning or express more meanings than your words can. Number 4, some actions can convey meanings that words cannot. Again, that look that Jesus gave Peter conveyed a meaning that maybe words could not. You could also see this maybe in a love sense. Here on campus, right before dorm lock, you tend to have a series of couples standing outside of the girls' dorms, applying our 6-inch rule to their noses and just staring each other in the eyes, okay? Now, that's communicating something. Might be disturbing to those walking by sometimes, but man, that's a young couple and they're communicating, "Oh, I think you're wonderful," right? They're communicating something that is even above and beyond what their words could communicate just by looking into each other's eyes. Actions can communicate messages that words cannot communicate. Number 5, actions help to establish your personality with the audience. They help to establish your personality with the audience. Your actions make you, you. Number 6, actions give strength to your convictions and feelings. They give strength. It's like you have your message, and your message is a frame. but in order to give strength to that frame, in order to support it and make it more colorful and more soundly understood by your audience, you have to add actions, motions, gestures, movements to that frame, that structure of your outline or of the words that you have. Number 7, bodily actions will help to relieve nervousness. They will help to relieve nervousness. Rigid placement will make you more nervous. Movement will relax your muscles. And again, we'll talk more about nervousness and stage fright in lecture 4, but know that, or in section 4. But know that movement helps to alleviate nerves. Letter B, 2 types of bodily actions. Know these, study them, remember them for future assessments. 2 types of bodily actions. Number 1, you have an overt action. An overt action. Now, an overt action is a discernible movement of any muscle or major member of the body. A discernible movement of any muscle or major member of the body. So this is an overt movement. That would be taking a step. That would be making a gesture. These are overt movements. Next, you have covert movements, or a covert action. A covert action is the tension or relaxation, of the muscle, and is less discernible to the audience, but of no less importance. The tension or relaxation of a muscle and is less discernible to the audience, but of no less importance. What would this be? Well, this would include many of your facial expressions, right? There's not much of a difference between some of your facial expressions, between just an empty look and an interested look. It's very, very slight, and yet your audience will catch in on it. How you make a gesture, right? This would be an overt movement. And yet you can make this movement in different ways, and those would be the covert aspects of the movement. If I'm making the movement like this, okay, well, I have my muscles kind of tensed. On the other hand, I could make more of a gentle, welcoming movement. My muscles are relaxed. Now, it's not something you're going to look and you're going to notice a big difference in, but there is a difference to your audience. Your audience will be able to catch on to those covert actions. So please note these, overt and covert actions. In our next lecture, we will continue to study gestures and bodily movements.